All right, welcome back to the Here's the Deal channel. Thank you for joining. Remember, no matter how paranoid or conspiracy minded you may be, what the government is up to is far more horrific and horrendous than you could possibly wrap your mind around. And that's what we're going to talk about today. This is a subject and a topic that I've been wanting to talk about for a while, but I wanted to just kind of let things settle and try to find out what direction this whole thing was going. This right here, if you can see in the center of your screen, oops, oh man, what just happened? Let me just refresh this. Yeah, it just went away. Nice. Let's see. In the center of your screen, this is Brian Malinowski as he is today. His remains are in this urn. This is Brian Malinowski before the ATF got to him during an early morning raid where they eliminated him in front of his screaming wife. And we're going to talk about this. This right here is Steve Dettelbach. He is the current director of the ATF. The ATF, by the way, was responsible for the offing of Randy Weaver's wife, his son, his dog, and a lot of other victims, including 26 little people in Waco. So we know the ATF has a horrible track record, not of serving and protecting, but of harassing and collecting. And some of those things that they end up collecting is your life. So we're going to talk about this. Dettelbach, who's like I said, the director of the ATF, was recently grilled by the House Judiciary Committee, and we're going to watch some of that. But you got to understand what happened to Brian Malinowski is something that could easily happen to any one of us at any time. And you can expect, if the government is at the bottom of it, if the government has initiated it, things are probably not going to go well with you, just like they didn't go with Mr. Malinowski. Now, one of the things that you need to know about Mr. Malinowski is he didn't have a criminal record. He was well respected in his community. He was the director of the Little Rock Airport since 2019. Again, no criminal record. What was his crime then? Why was the ATF at his house early morning putting tape over his security cameras? Let me show this to you. I'm going to show this to you. This is the security camera footage before they put tape on Malinowski's. They had the tape ready. Let's watch it again. This is the ATF SWAT team coming in hot with dozens of militarized soldiers in a quiet neighborhood cul-de-sac in a well-to-do area. And they're putting tape over the security camera because they aren't interested in transparency. So when they conducted this raid, and I'll get it right before he puts this piece of tape on, they had the piece of tape ready because they don't want their actions to be recorded. They want to do it without anybody recording. That's why they didn't wear their body cameras during this early morning raid. Now, they could have picked Malinowski up anytime they wanted, anywhere they wanted. They staked this guy out. They knew where he worked. This guy's making $256,000 a year as the director of the Little Rock Airport. They knew where he was. They knew what they thought he was guilty of. They had the warrants. All they had to do, if they were going to conduct the raid, which I am not sitting here endorsing that raid was right at all, or that the warrant being issued on an American citizen was right at all, because it all centers around gun possession and gun sales. I'm going to start this video off with the way I should have started it off, with the very clear words of the Second Amendment. 27 words, very easy. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms. Does it say what kind of arms? No. Does it say how many arms? No. Does it say you can't sell the arms, that you can't buy the arms anytime they want? Is there anything in this? This is a sliver of the supreme law of the land. There's not supposed to be any law that's higher. Is there anywhere in this where you have to have a license to buy firearms, to sell firearms, to possess our firearms? No, quite the opposite. It ends with these four beautifully simple words: shall not be infringed. So if you're required to have a license to possess or to buy or to sell firearms, would that count as a hindrance, as an infringement, as a deterrent? Yes, absolutely it would. The only crime that Brian Malinowski is guilty of, which isn't a crime at all, is buying and selling firearms. He bought way too many. He sold way too many at gun shows. And that's what the ATF, that's why they sought the warrant, so that they could go conduct this no-knock raid early in the morning. Now we're going to watch some of this. I don't even know what to tell you about the House Judiciary Committee questioning, because in my opinion, this guy, Steve Dettelbach, who's the director of the ATF, committed contempt of Congress by not answering the questions. By the way, Brian Malinowski's widow is in this conference room, and one of the congressmen or senators is going to ask Dettelbach, ATF director, to turn around and apologize to his wife. I want you to see that apology, but first we're going to get to this.
We'll begin the hearing with opening statement. Chair recognizes himself. Government's not supposed to change the rules without a vote of Congress. Executive branch executes the laws, the legislative branch passes the laws. But when you bypass that format, which is exactly what the ATF has done, you get all kinds of bad things. First, it was the pistol brace rule. November 26, 2012, the ATF told the inventor of the pistol brace, quote, he would not be subject to the National Firearms Act. But last year, they changed the rule. After 12 years, changed the rule. The rule, by the way, the pistol brace was put together to help disabled veterans be able to shoot, be able to practice and shoot at the range.
You know, something I never hear these congressmen or senators say in this or anywhere else is that there shouldn't be any rules attached to the Second Amendment. Either we have the right to keep and bear arms and they shall not be infringed, or not. I mean, it is called the Second Amendment. So if you don't like the Second Amendment, go ahead and amend it. Actually, just go ahead and do away with it. Stop paying lip service to it when you don't even believe it. When you believe that you can circumvent it, that it's going to make people safer. See, these people right here, they want peaceful slavery rather than dangerous freedom. And what the Second Amendment offers, or what it recognizes, is, hey, freedom is dangerous. In the words of the civil rights lawyer, deal with it. Freedom is dangerous, but the only thing more dangerous is not having that freedom. What would you rather have? Dangerous freedom or peaceful slavery? And I know that may be a false dichotomy. It's like, can't we have something in between? I think in regard to liberty, in regard to firearms freedoms, specifically in this case for the Second Amendment, I don't think there is a middle road. It's either you want the Second Amendment, shall not be infringed, or you don't. If you think there's a middle ground where we can compromise on unalienable rights, let me know in the comments.
Now, with the rule change, if you don't turn it in, get rid of it, you become a felon. Then it was a policy change that the ATF enacted. The ATF now says if a federal firearms licensee makes a mistake on a form, even if it's a clerical mistake, well, that now equals a, quote, willful falsifying of records, and they could lose their license. In fact, 157 FFLs lost their license last year in this gotcha game that the ATF is playing with people who are in the business of selling firearms. And the pressure to deal with what the ATF comes out and finds you made some mistake on a form, many people are just voluntarily giving up their FFL. 24 in 2021, 69 in 2022, 80 people last year.
Yeah, and one of the reasons they're giving it up is because they don't want to become the victims of the ATF or some kind of FBI or SWAT sting. They want to preserve their families. They don't want to be put on a list, because that's what ends up happening. People who have these FFLs end up being investigated. And if they commit one little infraction, the ATF somehow is able to get a warrant from some non-Second Amendment loving judge, and they're able to conduct these no-knock raids, which is dangerous for the homeowner and dangerous for the agents who go and do the no-knock raid.
Gave up their license versus dealing with the hassle from the agency that's supposed to help them comply, not put them out of business. And finally, there's the new definition of who actually needs a federal firearms license. Since 1968, the definition said it had to be your principal livelihood in the business of selling firearms. You needed that. If you were doing that, you needed an FFL. But this past Monday, new definition was put in place. It said if you're earning a profit, ATF can't really define what that means. You sell one gun to your cousin, made $10, made $50 on the sale of a gun, 2 guns to someone, 10 guns. In fact, they couldn't even tell the court how it works, this new definition. When you make up the rules as you go, bad things happen.
Well, nobody should be allowed to make up rules that violate the Second Amendment, specifically in this case. Any law, any supreme law of the land, the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, the Ninth Amendment, the 10th Amendment. Nobody should make laws that supersede that. Otherwise, stop calling it the supreme law of the land. When you have a law that's contradictory to and in direct opposition to the supreme law of the land, according to Marbury versus Madison, it's supposed to be null and void, right?
You lose your livelihood for a clerical error. You become a felon for having a pistol brace they told you was legal for 12 years. And you might—
Yeah, exactly. Government is slavery, says in the chat room. The ATF is an infringement.
Even get shot.
And guys, stay tuned, because there are going to be some nuggets of fact that come out in this that are absolutely startling. The way the director of the ATF handles this is an absolute embarrassment and shame, and exposes exactly how evil and corrupt this organization is and how Americans could absolutely do without it, to the point of how many no-knock raids do they conduct every single year, just the ATF? How much do the American tax cattle pay to fund the ATF? These are all coming up. Stay tuned. You ain't seen nothing yet.
That's what happened to Brian Malinowski just 2 months ago. We have Brian's widow with us today. She was here with us yesterday. Heard some powerful testimony from U.S. Attorney Bud Cummings, who represents the Malinowski family. In fact, I'm going to read from Mr. Cummings' testimony that he gave in this room yesterday. It's legal to buy, trade, and sell guns. Janice
Kowalski says, Brian, I'm sorry, my friend, but in this case, you do not have basic understanding. Constitution has been hijacked. Constitution has not been hijacked. Constitution is a hijack. It's a con. It's a con game. Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes. That's in the Constitution. That is a con game. The whole thing is a con, because it looks like the Constitution was developed to get the slaves to embrace their own slavery, while they have leaders that rule over them and create the laws in the supreme law of the land. So it is a constitution. On top of that, Constitution is related only to men and women. If you have a birth certificate, yeah, all of it is absolute. All of it is a con game. I don't know what you're saying that I don't have an understanding on. I've been saying this for a long time, and I echo again with Lysander Spooner. No matter whatever the Constitution may be, it's either this or it's that. If it's authorized such a tyrannical government as we have, or it's been powerless to stop it, in either case, it's unfit to exist.
Without a federal firearms license, if you are a collector or hobbyist. But at some point, the ATF decided that Brian Malinowski had crossed a murky line, and he was no longer a hobbyist. Because of that, ATF concluded he was required to purchase a $200 federal firearms license.
Bingo. There you go. Follow the money. Oh, do you want that natural right? Then you're going to have to pay us for that right. So all a license is recognizing that men have a right, and then making that right illegal so that they could put a price tag on that right. And then you have to come to the authorities to pay for that right back. Oh, you want that right? You can have that right. You just got to pay us. That is the very definition of a con game. Taking something away from somebody that they didn't grant and can't legitimately take away, and then creating a paradigm or a situation where propaganda takes over in the minds of the people and they believe, oh, these are the authorities. They can make laws, they can set policies, they can create restrictions, and they can require me to get a license to do something that I have a natural right to do in the first place. That's a con game.
Before he sold any more guns. I call it murky because there is no bright line test. It's truly subjective. But one thing seems certain. Brian Malinowski received no warning.
Yep.
His family, his friends, his work colleagues would all guarantee you he loved his career and he would have never knowingly jeopardized it over a weekend hobby. His real job, his main job, only job, was he ran the Bill and Hillary Clinton Airport in Little Rock, Arkansas, highest paid official in the municipal government, made $260,000 a year. But on March 19th at 6:01 a.m., over 1 hour before sunup, 10 carloads of ATF agents and Little Rock Police Department officers came to the Malinowski home to execute their search warrant.
10 carloads of agents to descend upon one American household in a quiet, non-crime cul-de-sac. Think about that. Is this really the land of the free? Are we going to continue to live under this delusion that we are actually free when this could happen to any one of us at any time, specifically at night, while you're sleeping, thinking you're safe in America? This is startling.
Not an arrest warrant, search warrant. At 6:02:46 a.m., ATF agents in full SWAT gear approached the front door. They had a piece of tape ready to cover the camera lens of the doorbell camera, which they did. Next, Mrs. Malinowski heard only a loud crash as her front door caved in. Her husband, Brian, woke up to the sound of the crash, found a pistol, loaded a magazine, and left the bedroom to investigate. Brian warned his wife to stay behind in the bedroom, but Mayor stubbornly followed him down the hallway. The ATF apparently killed electricity to the home. The front room was usually well lit at night, but Mrs. Malinowski saw only darkness as she peered down towards the front entryway. She could only see shadowy outlines of presumed home invaders standing in her front hallway. That's what Brian saw too. Brian fired a few shots at the intruders' feet to drive them back out of the front door. The ATF shot Brian in the head. His wife was standing inches away from him. A mere 57 seconds. 57 seconds elapsed from the time agents covered the doorbell camera until gunshots erupted and Brian was fatally wounded.
You know, it's almost like it was by design. It's almost like they meant to set this up. It's almost like they intentionally went to this guy's house to murder this guy. You would think that they intentionally did it to like get rid of him. What did Brian Malinowski have on these people? You know that's what's going to happen. You know, if you live in this area, by the way, Arkansas is a constitutional carry state. You don't need a license to conceal carry, along with 27 other states in the United States. So they know it's a high likelihood that if we go to this guy's house and he's been buying and selling firearms and ammunition, that he's probably going to have access to a lot of firearms and ammunition. Hey, what should we do? Let's go to his house an hour before sun up and conduct a raid on his house. Let's bash in his front door and just go in guns blazing. How can you think for a second that no harm would come to you and your band of marauders? And how can you possibly think for a second no harm would come to this guy? Who thought that this would be a good idea? They know who he is. They know how much he makes. They know he's an established member of society. They know he's got no criminal history. Why not go to this guy's work during the day and talk reasonably with him and say, you know what? We've got all this information compiled on you. First of all, it shouldn't be like this because we have a Second Amendment. You should be able to buy and sell whatever you want. You should be able to possess whatever you want. If you want to defend yourself with an AK-47, AR-15, RPG, whatever. There's no limitation on what kind of arm you can have or how many of them you can have. So first of all, they shouldn't visit him because there is no crime according to the Second Amendment if you take that as the supreme law of the land in keeping and bearing any kind of arm that you want. But let's say that, that we all accepted that it's okay to infringe on that right. Wouldn't the next reasonable, logical step be to let's visit this guy at his work? We know who he is. We know how much he makes. He's a well-established guy, no criminal history. Probably nothing will happen if we go to his office and politely talk to him and tell him, hey, you've been selling all this stuff. We need you to stop. Done. Okay, fine. Don't let us warn you again. Okay. And then they get to walk away. Malinowski gets to walk away. And I'm not even saying that scenario is right, but it's better than a dead man in a funeral urn, right?
6:02:46 to 6:03:43. Agents immediately dragged Mrs. Malinowski into the front yard. She was barefoot, wearing minimal night clothing, and the temperature was 34 degrees. They locked her in the back seat of a car and detained her there for 4 hours, refusing her many requests to check on her husband she had just seen shot, wouldn't allow her to get close or even use the neighbor's bathroom.
And that right there is another example of the lack of humanity in every single agent who is on the scene. It's 34 degrees outside. She has minimal clothing on. She's freezing to death. They're going to lock her in the back of a cop car for 4 freaking hours. You got to be kidding me. You're telling me, ATF agents, that you wouldn't mind that being done to your mother or your wife or your sister? How about a little bit of human compassion? How about an application of a little bit of the golden rule? Nothing. Zero.
Even though policies have been in place at both the ATF and the Little Rock Police Department for the past 3 years, requiring the use of body-worn cameras when executing any search warrant, the Department of Justice tells us that no body cameras were used.
Wait till you hear the excuse of the ATF director on why they just haven't gotten around to using body cams over there in the Arkansas ATF branch.
If this isn't the weaponization of government, I don't know what is.
Amen. Amen. And I can't stand these guys. I can't stand any Republican, any Democrat. They're not working for you. They're working against you. They're shoveling boatloads of money to other countries while our vets remain homeless on the streets, while we have major issues, infrastructural issues right here in the homeland. And yet we give away billions, trillions of dollars to other countries and the big pharma industrial complex and the military industrial complex and the prison industrial complex. So I'm under no delusion where I think Republicans or Democrats or Demoplicans and Republicans are on our side at all. But he makes a good point.
Settlebach, we're going to have questions about this and a host of other things the ATF has done under your watch. A host of other things. We appreciate you being here today. We appreciate you taking our questions, but there's going to be tough questions from folks on our side. We have a video I'd like to show, which just so it's a minute and a half, but it first shows ATF agents assembling in the Walmart parking lot a week before March 19th, when they were going to execute this search warrant. Again, pre-dawn hours a week before, but decided not to because they realized Mr. Malinowski wasn't home. And then it shows what happened a week later as they approached the Malinowski home. So let's run the video.
Yeah, let's run that video. Watch this. Now, how many of you, as we're watching this, how many of you have a Walmart or a big grocery store parking lot down the street, within 5 miles of your house? Because picture them converging on this parking lot in your town, but they're there to converge and conspire against you. Easily could happen, guys. And it'll become more apparent to you that it really is likely and it is easy to imagine it happening to you when you find out how many no-knock warrants are conducted on American soil every single year and how many there used to be compared to what it is now. So they're just going to go over this. I think this is silent right here, but check them out. They're just all converging. All right. How are we going to align ourselves and make ourselves a stench in the nostril of this American because he broke our rules. He transgressed our laws. Here's another situation. This is when they actually met in the Walmart parking lot. The first one was on the 12th when they didn't end up going to his house because they found out he wasn't there. And this is where they actually converged when he was there. Yeah, they're loitering. Here's them coming up to look at this. I think there's some audio here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cars. 10 cars to converge on one American. This is a nice neighborhood, too. Here they come, going up to the door. And we've already seen the tape right there over the surveillance camera because they don't want transparency. They don't want anybody to see their evil deeds. They don't want Americans to be really all that alarmed. They don't want everybody to get together. They want us to stay disjointed. They want to dehumanize us, demoralize us. They want to divide us. They don't want to get us to get together and go, you know what? We don't really need the ATF. We need the ATF about as much as we need a hole in our hearts. Check this out. This is the Daryl Issa excoriates ATF director to his face over decision to no-knock raid the suspect's house. So you're going to actually hear from the ATF director in this one.
I recognize myself now. Director,
I recognize myself. This stuff is just so funny.
you accused a dead man of a crime of illegally selling in the back seat a weapon. And would I hear that correctly?
Respectfully, what I did was talked about the public search warrant affidavit that was filed and proved by the judge.
I understand, but you're standing by your search warrant. You're standing by the fact that in the search warrant, you're alleging that he had committed a crime. Is that correct?
Chairman, respectfully, I was making the point that a
No,
federal magistrate...
you're not being respectful. Answer the question. The question is, did you...
He's going to say that a lot. You're going to hear this guy, Steve Dettelbach, from the director from the ATF. You're going to say respectfully. Well, you can't respectfully execute an American in his own home during a no-knock raid. That's not respectful. And nothing you do, nothing you stand for, Dettelbach, is respectful to the American people. It's absolutely disrespectful.
Allege that he had committed a felony, a crime, in your affidavit.
The judge did find that.
Okay. Well, I'll take that as the judge found it because you alleged it. So you alleged a crime, but you didn't seek to arrest him, did you? Did you have an arrest warrant for Mr. Malinowski?
My understanding...
That's a yes or no, Director.
My understanding is that there was not an arrest warrant. I don't have the full investigative file, but that is my understanding.
You came here, you knew we were going to ask, you saw yesterday, and now you're playing one of the games that the chairman and I didn't like during Fast and Furious. We don't like it now. If you want to be back here again, because you can't seem to know what you should know, what Mrs. Malinowski deserves to know, if some group of 10 carloads of people showed up and kicked in a door in the dark of night and somebody came and shot at them, we wouldn't be talking about somebody getting shot in the toe. We'd be talking exclusively about a planned murder of somebody who may or may not be armed, but who had every right to have weapons in their home, an expectation they had weapons in their home, an expectation that they might use it. All of that, you don't have to be ATF to know.
That is exactly what this was, guys. I completely agree with this politician, this political parasite. This looks like it was a planned murder. They went to this armed men, a gang of armed men, went to this guy's house at night, knowing that this guy might shoot back, so that they can play the little war games. All of them are in their military gear. They're all tacked out. They descend on this guy without this guy even knowing what the heck is going on. They make no effort to correspond with him, get in touch with him, and let him know, hey, We got a little problem with you selling guns at gun shows. Can we just sit down and talk? Meet us at our office or whatever. Now, I get it. If they're going to the house in the middle of the night of a known diehard criminal who they have on videotape committing horrendous crimes, and they want to catch this guy without him being aware of it, and maybe give themselves an opportunity to save the taxpayers a lot of money when they end up, putting this guy in death row, keeping that from happening, saving $45,000 to $60,000 a year by eliminating him. I can understand that kind of scenario, but not this scenario where you're going to the house of a guy that has no criminal record, is basically a pillar and well liked in his community, is the director of a huge airport, the Little Rock Airport in Arkansas. None of this makes any sense, except why did they want to go and eliminate this guy? Why did they want to execute this guy? Very, very interesting.
So let's go back on track here again. If you had a belief that he had committed a crime, and if your intent was to arrest him, then that would explain why a week earlier you called off an already authorized search, because you were only going to search for the weapons. You weren't going to search for him. Isn't that correct?
Respectfully, Mr. Chairman.
Respectful.
I am not able and will not. It's not fair to do this during the pendency of a criminal investigation.
No, look.
It's not fair. What's not fair is there's an American who's dead. There's a whole lot of other Americans that are dead because of the ATF, because of the FBI. Wait till you hear the stats. Wait till you hear the Mount Everest size pile of money the American tax cattle are fleeced every year to fund an agency who could best be described as a domestic terror cell. Wait till you hear it.
It's always, I'm sorry, but DOJ and you guys, it's always, you can go on forever. Hunter Biden's over. Why didn't you do a no-knock on him at his home with the vice president?
To be clear, this isn't our investigation.
That's actually a good question. It's like, those guys are criminals. Now, if the ATF was out there marching on politicians, like if they were out there knocking on Dennis Hastert's door, he used to be the Speaker of the House, the second in line to become the President of the United States for 8 frickin' years, and identifying him as later a federal judge would do as a serial child molester, you could understand, you could justify the existence of this agency. If they were going to Washington's District of Criminals and knocking on every criminal's door, like AOC, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, like Nazi Pelosi, like Ted Cruz, and throwing their butts in jail for creating horrific bills, and I'm not saying AOC was a part of it this time, but she would have been if she was a congressman or senator back in 2001. How about arresting every single criminal politician who had their hand in drafting the Patriot Act or the Affordable Care Act, or funding the Department of Homeland Security and the TSA, which is a domestic terror cell in all airports across the United States. Now, if the ATF was about the business of doing that, but not being funded by the American tax cattle and not fleecing them to the tune of, wait till you hear how much money it's coming. I can understand the existence of such an organization, but they're going after Americans. Peaceful Americans who haven't committed any crime. The only crime they've committed is they've somehow broken some, super ambiguous policy that the ATF has released, as though they are legislators and they can make any kind of law that Americans are supposed to be marching to. Utter criminality.
We in the Little Rock Police asked an outside investigation be conducted by the Arkansas State Police. It's their investigation. The district attorney is going to review that.
And I hope they appropriately find that in spite of qualified immunity, that you blew it badly enough that, in fact, criminal charges should be considered.
I hope they just find whatever the truth is.
What is the penalty for the crime alleged on the affidavit for selling a weapon not as a licensed dealer? What's the penalty?
Oh, my Lord. Mr. Chairman, I believe it's a 10-year felony, and there are two different crimes. It might be a 5-year and a 10-year felony.
Okay.
I want to get back to you to make sure that there's a series of statutes that run all in a row there. I want to make sure I'm not mixing up the statutes.
5 years.
And guess who comes up with that? The ATF comes up with that. So they are actually making policies that can be enforced, with the emphasis on force, enforced on Americans. And he can't even tell you what the policy is. And he's the director of the ATF. It's 5 years, $250,000 for that offense.
Or it's 10 years. It's not a death penalty. Is that correct?
There is not a death penalty for that statute, no.
Okay. So Mr. Malinowski was not in any danger of being executed for what he is alleged to have done and no longer can defend himself because he's dead. But he was killed doing what any normal citizen does when people enter their home in the dark of night and they don't know who they are. If you had body cameras, maybe Mrs. Malinowski didn't hear right. Maybe you said police and identified yourself. Maybe he said, I don't care, and maybe he fired the shots. I don't believe that.
You know, that's a dangerous thing too, though. Let's say a well-organized crime syndicate who wasn't the FBI or the ATF dressed like the FBI or the ATF because they had a beef with somebody at a particular house, say my house or your house, and they knocked on the door and said, police, open up. We're here to serve a warrant. But they're not the police. Don't tell me in the span of humanity that has never happened. How can you be sure that the people who are coming to your door, knocking on your door at 3 o'clock in the morning are the police when they say they're the police? You could let your guard down and go, oh, it's just the police. I thought somebody was breaking in on me, and then open the door, come to find out it's not the police. But then if it is the police and you open the door and you happen to have the gun in your hand, well, you're going to die at their hands too. So you got the people who said they were police but weren't, and you're dead. Or you got the people who said they're police and they were, and you're dead. Either way, you are dead. Bottom line is, it's a dangerous thing for all involved to come to somebody's house, especially in the South, especially in Arkansas or Oklahoma or Mississippi or Tennessee or Missouri, to go to their house and expect not to get, some self-defense initiated against you.
And I don't think you do either. I believe he had every real belief that he was defending his wife and family. He fired warning shots. A ricochet hit a police officer or an ATF agent, and you killed him. Those are the facts. I have been investigating ATF for many years, and ATF agents have, rightfully so, and with great trepidation, I'm sure, come forth and been our whistleblowers. And we've consistently seen there are two ATFs, the one we need and want and deserve, and the one that plays fast and loose, like 10 cars going in deliberately with a warrant that did not entitle an arrest, when in fact, if you wanted to arrest him, it would have been reasonable to arrest him at work.
There you go.
And simultaneously go into his home.
There you go.
If he had done that, he'd be alive today, and we'd be talking about other things, including whether you acted legally. With that, I yield.
Exactly. Now, Modern Retro Radio says the two senators who received the anthrax back in the day just happened to be the two senators who voted against the Patriot Act, which was probably one of the most unpatriotic acts that were ever foisted upon the American people. If that's true, that the two senators who voted against the Patriot Act are the ones who received the anthrax in the mail, that's pretty interesting. Now we're going to get to how much money the ATF makes per year off the backs of the American tax cattle, and how many no-knock warrants are served every single year against the American people. The number it's shocking.
Text recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe with us today, Ms. Malinowski, if you're out there, would you please stand?
Oh yeah, this is the one where the ATF director is ordered by Troy Nels to apologize to the widow of the man killed in the ATF raid. But watch how he does it and see if it sits right with you.
recognize you, Ms. Malinowski. Her first name is Mayor, Director. Would you like to stand up and look at her and apologize?
Here she is right here. Here she is.
I've already said, of course, whenever these things happen, it's a tragedy.
I've already said that's beside the point. What I don't care if this is your 2050th time of apologizing. You don't start it off with, "I've already said I'm sorry. We've already gone over this, but I'll do it again." Just so callous.
Of course, we're sorry. Everybody is sorry that.
Of course.
Yeah, look at her. Don't look at me.
It doesn't mean that, I'm trying to also speak into the microphone. It doesn't mean that we can adjudicate this here today. There's an investigation going on. But of course, everybody, and everybody feels bad. I'm sure that a federal agent was shot, not shot at, shot that day. Those things are hard facts for all of us.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mayor.
What a frickin' I don't cuss, but if I was going to, there's some pretty choice cuss words that I think I'd bring out in the arsenal right now. What would you use?
First, I want to enter
Just a scummy dude, man. Just a scummy dude.
something into the record. Your testimony, you say guns are the leading cause of death for children in the U.S. Not according to Snoops. It's a far left.
Not according to Snoops. Not according to Snoop Dogg, it isn't. It's Snopes. Even if Snopes, which is far left, says, no, guns aren't the leading cause of death. It's traffic accidents. It's like, wow, you guys are really being underhanded and sneaky about this.
Publication. It is traffic crashes. Could I have that entered into
Without
the record,
objection,
please?
so ordered.
Thank you so very much.
But besides that, guns don't kill anybody. Guns don't save lives. Guns don't take lives. Guns are merely tools. It's like saying hammers take 23,500 lives, everything. No, hammers don't take lives. Pneumatic equipment, nail guns don't take lives. It's about the person who took the life, whether accidentally or on purpose, the person who saved a life using a tool like a firearm. That's the person who saved a life. That's the person who took the life. To make an inanimate object the guilty party and to vilify it and to villainize those who hold it is the crime. If you have an AR-15 or an AK-47 and somebody uses an AR-15 or AK-47 or a rifle that should only be on the battlefields, you happen to have it, why should you get criminalized because somebody used it at a local grocery store in your town or some town across the country to off a whole bunch of people? Why should you be criminalized for that? You shouldn't. That's a travesty of justice. That we're at this point in America shows you just how robbed of justice and fairness and love and compassion and principle we have been in America. We've been robbed. We've given it away through propaganda. It's like, oh my God, those guns are really jumping off shelves, loading themselves and pulling their own triggers. Guns don't take lives. Guns don't save lives. Guns are inanimate tools. The takers and savers of life can only be human beings. I mean, I can't believe I have to say that, but yeah, gun violence is a misnomer. That's like saying inanimate object violence or hammer violence. Nobody talks about knife violence. And if they are, and I think they are in the UK, they talk about knife violence. There's no such thing as knife violence. There's no such thing as gun violence because there's no such thing as paperweight violence or coffee cup violence or any other inanimate object violence. I mean, I know this is elementary, my dear Watson, but sometimes you got to state the obvious to correct all the nonsense. It's no measure of good mental health to be considered well-adjusted to a profoundly sick society. We have a profoundly sick society who buys into idiotic terms and phrases like gun violence.
I was a sheriff, 8 years as in law enforcement, 30, conducted a lot of search warrants. My agency, I would not allow for no knocks, just didn't allow it because what we've seen over the past several years when you have these SWAT teams looking like ninjas coming to doors at 6 o'clock in the morning. It just could cause some problems.
Exactly.
You stated in your testimony just a few minutes ago, 11,000 of these a year. Very dangerous, done with very experienced agents, right? What policies do you have when you are going to execute search warrants, arrest warrants to mitigate risk? Mitigate risk.
Yeah, Congressman, first of all, we do a very, very thorough job of training, which is, of course, as you know, as a sheriff, very important. Second, we have operations planning. We have review of the operations.
Executing a search, well, thank you. Executing a search warrant pre-dawn, early in the morning, knowing people are going to be in bed. How does that mitigate risk?
Good question. Good question. Knowing people are in their most vulnerable state, in a southern state, no less, where the likelihood that you'll encounter a homeowner that is heavily armed, how does that mitigate risk? Good question.
Especially when you do it and it's a no-knock.
So Congressman, as a former sworn sheriff, I assume you would agree with me that police are entitled to due process also.
I tell you what it appears to me is what I've seen from the federal government, whether it's ATF.
That is absolutely not answering the question. The question was pretty clear. It was pretty direct. I don't think there was any ambiguity to it. How are you, just explain, please, how you're mitigating risk to not only the homeowner, but to your own guys who showed up in 10 vehicles who are all tacked out? How do you mitigate the possibility that one of those guys are going to get shot and killed and not be able to go home to their families? How do you do that? No answer.
For the FBI doing search warrants or arrest warrants on J6ers, going in there with flashbangs, with the big Bearcats. I had a Bearcat. I know what it is. And having agents come out looking like they're ninja turtles for combat. I think not only are you scaring the hell out of the entire neighborhood, but when you kick down or break down,
well, not only scaring the entire neighborhood, it would be easy to see that the bullets. Let's say that there's only one person per vehicle, and I doubt that. I highly doubt that. Let's say there were 2 people per vehicle and 10 vehicles showed up. That's 20 guys who are heavily armed, and if they all engaged in the gunfight, you're talking about a possibility of a lot of stray bullets going all over the place in the neighborhood, and not just jeopardizing the life of the dastardly homeowner or the agents, but other people, innocent people who are asleep in their quiet cul-de-sac thinking that they're going to get up and go to work in the morning.
Door, and you don't even announce who you are. What do you think is going to happen? This was Mr. Malinowski there to try to protect his family.
Yep.
He didn't know. If you would have called him, sir, had a casual conversation, were you aware that he had no criminal history?
Sheriff?
I just want to ask a question. Are you aware, did you know the gentleman had no criminal history?
I would love for him to answer this question, but I don't think he does.
No prior?
Am I aware sitting here?
Yes. Were you aware of it?
In firearms trafficking cases, and people who are dealing without a license and buying 150
I'm sure there are a lot of bad hombres out there.
would not have a criminal.
I'm trying to focus on Mr. Malinowski. Were you personally aware that he didn't have a criminal history?
Again, I'm trying to answer your question directly.
You don't try to answer the question. It's either a yes or no. Were you aware that Malinowski had a criminal history or a clean history? Which one is it? You're not trying to answer the question. You're trying to skirt the question.
Obviously, it's quite clear you weren't. Quite clear you weren't. And I want to talk about mitigating risk, but were your air agents wearing body cameras that day?
Again, I've tried to say this. I'd like a chance to answer this. The entire field division that covers Arkansas had not yet been phased in.
You have a budget. Try to convince the American people you don't have the do-re-mi to put body cameras on your agents that are conducting 11,000 warrants. These are dangerous. You've got 11,000 of them out there, and you had a budget last year of $1.672 billion with a B. And you're telling me, I'm sorry, folks, I can't provide this transparency to the American people. I can't because I don't have the budget to do so. The American people, there's a problem right now with law enforcement out there. And I have the picture and the image of every law enforcement officer that's been killed in the past 3.5 years. And there's way too many. There's way too many on my wall.
We agree.
And so we have body-worn cameras. And why do we do that? because there is a lack of trust between the police and the communities they serve. So when you provide these cameras, there's no he said, she said. It's all on record. And you didn't have your body cameras on that day. I'm telling you, it stinks to high heaven.
Yeah, amen. A frickin' man. Amen. It does. It does stink to high heaven. I don't even think he's stated what the actual sum of money the ATF collects from Americans each year is. It's not like they couldn't afford it. Here, let me just go to it, because I was looking up something else. I was looking up Fast and Furious, which the ATF was directly involved in. But I want to show you this crazy number. Look at this. This is from the ATF website. Let me expand this a little bit so you can see it. It's an eye-popping freaking number. It's not gonna. Let's see. Yeah, look at this. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives is a world-class law enforcement organization committed to safeguarding lives by protecting the public. Oh my gosh, I didn't read that. Oh my gosh, it's the very first line of the budget and performance tab on the ATF website is an absolute lie. They do the opposite. It's a violent organization committed to unsufferable carnage on American soil against the public, creating situations where we commit violent crimes, the ATF should say. ATF protects the public from crimes involving firearms. This is such a lie, man. But, okay, we'll just forget about that. No, we won't. In fiscal year 2022, ATF had almost 5,100 employees, including 2,500 special agents and 816 industry operations investigators. Its fiscal year 2022 enacted budget was approximately 1.4, not million, but billion dollars. 1.4 billion frickin' dollars. And the ATF director is going to say, well, we due to funding issues and we didn't roll out the program, we couldn't get them the body cameras that they needed to be wearing in that particular situation.
I highly recommend you cooperate with this committee and you try to explain.
So you're implying that he's not cooperating with the committee? And if he's not cooperating with the committee, that means he's he's in contempt of the committee. Then why don't you get some of those well-paid Capitol policemen to surround the ATF director, put the cuffs on him, and throw him into jail, which is what you would do to us if you held us in contempt. Maybe put him in jail for 180 days.
Other than this, I don't have the money to do so, and I'm phasing it in. Buddy, you got to get your priorities, reshuffle your priorities and get your priorities in order. And I highly recommend you get body cameras on every one of those individuals that are searching these warrants, because it seems like there's a cover up here. I yield back.
It sure does look like there's a cover up, but I would just amend what he just said. I don't think that the ATF agents should get body cams put on them during these raids, because I personally don't think the ATF should exist. Do you? Let me know in the comments. Do you think the ATF should actually exist as a domestic terror cell organization? Because that's the way they've been acting. Let me just show you this. Let me open it up another tab. This is where I kind of tune this guy out, but you'll want to hear the next thing. This right here is kind of an overview of what happened with Fast and Furious. Did you know that Fast and Furious was the sole responsibility of the ATF? Operation Fast and Furious was a failed law enforcement strategy employed by the U.S. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives in 2009 to track guns bought in Arizona and trafficked into Mexico without seizing the illegally purchased guns. They couldn't even conduct their own operations appropriately, which let a whole lot of guns go into a whole lot of wrong hands. But they're going to execute a search warrant on an American citizen on American soil. when they were responsible for this failure right here. And the failure only came to light after a patrol agent was killed with guns involved in the operation. That's the only reason. Otherwise, it would have been covered up. If the people who were the loved ones of this patrol agent didn't do some digging and independent research, it never would have come to light. Because the government, if the government's good at one thing, it's hiding indiscretions from the American people so it doesn't implicate them and make them look bad. They don't want a PR nightmare on their hands. Both the House and the Senate launched investigations raising law enforcement, whistleblower, and obstruction of Congress concerns, sparking a years-long court battle over congressional access to executive branch documents and initiating the first House vote to hold a sitting cabinet member in contempt of Congress. Operation Fast and Furious rose out of a series of ATF efforts to combat gun trafficking, and guess what they did? They made the gun trafficking worse. In 2005, ATF launched Project Gun Runner to enhance the tracking of U.S. guns transported to Mexico and improve law enforcement coordination and intelligence activities. In March 2006, an ATF office in Tucson, Arizona, initiated Operation Wide Receiver, in which the ATF agents allowed a confidential informant to sell hundreds of firearms to straw purchasers, people who legally buy weapons and transfer them to others who can legally possess them. Although ATF agents knew more than 400 firearms were purchased during Operation Wide Receiver, they made no arrests and retrieved fewer than 100 of the guns. The operation ended in 2007. So they gave away 400 guns, only got 100 back, and somehow 300 guns disappeared while they were trying to control the gun trafficking. Talk about an utter failure. This is another example of, if you want to make a situation worse, the only ingredient you have to add to the cake is government. I'm from the government. I'm here to help. If you want to lose more guns than you ever thought possible, get the government involved, specifically the ATF. Is that worth $1.4 billion a year?
Mr. Dettelbach, what were you trying to hide?
I love this right here.
On the raid on March 19th at Mr. Malinowski's house, disabled the doorbell camera, cut electricity to the house.
This is a great distillation. I'm going to play this over again. I'll try not to. I'm going to butt in just a little bit, but this is a great distillation of what actually happened that Americans should know and be disturbed about. Because if this can happen to Malinowski, Brian Malinowski, $250,000 a year, director of a huge airport, pillar in his community, no criminal record. If it can happen to somebody like that, you think it's not going to happen to you? Are you serious?
Mr. Dettelbach, what were you trying to hide? On the raid on March 19th at Mr. Malinowski's house, disabled the doorbell camera, cut electricity to the house, and you didn't wear body cameras. What are you guys trying to hide?
Mr. Chairman, we're not trying to hide things. In fact,
Sure seems like it. You guys cut electricity to the house?
That's
a question.
I'm trying to answer. Okay.
He's not
if there's
trying to
no
answer.
question, that's fine. I'm sorry.
No, that is a question. Did you?
After the incident,
He's not trying to answer. He's trying not to answer.
along with the Little Rock Police, called for an independent investigation being done by the Arkansas State Police and the local prosecutor.
No,
That's not trying to hide anything.
I asked 3 questions. Why'd you put the tape on the doorbell camera?
Mhm.
Why'd you cut the lights? And why didn't you wear the body cams?
Yep.
What are you trying to hide?
And Mr. Chairman, the reason that we called for the investigation is we're not trying to hide anything. The reason I'm not going to talk about what's going on in that investigation is to respect its independence and out of fairness. There's a reason for the Department of Justice policy that's existed for so many decades about not commenting on pending matters. It's not fair to people, and it risks the perception that people are trying to influence.
How about this one? Why'd you ignore the rules? Because don't the rules say you should only use a no-knock entrance into a property if it's the only way, if it's the absolute best way to do it? I mean, I could read from Ms. Monaco's directive. Limit the circumstances in which agents may seek to enter a dwelling pursuant to a warrant without.
I like what Fred just said in the comments section. We're not trying to hide anything because we already covered that part up.
complying with the knock and announce rule because of the risk posed to both law enforcement and civilians. So you want to limit this. Why'd you guys do it all in 57 seconds?
Respectfully, with respect to what I said before, is that we are not trying to hide anything. An independent agency is investigating it, and we, pursuant to longstanding policy, are not
Director,
going to
the
comment.
Department of Justice has already told us you guys weren't wearing cameras. I'm just asking why.
For the cameras, our body-worn camera policy, I can talk about that. I think I can answer the question without talking about this case.
You can talk about some things relative to the investigation, but not others. We want all the answers to what's going on here.
I will tell you, with respect to the body-worn camera policy, the Department of Justice announced that policy when it was announced, as we have communicated to your staff and you. It was announced that it would be phased implementation. ATF is implementing that policy. We've implemented it in just under a third of our field divisions. We have not received 3 separate requests for program funding from Congress to do so, but we are still doing it. I watched a hearing a couple of weeks ago where your fellow
police
chairman...
officers did the Little Rock...
Did you hear that? Program funding and rollouts. That's not a good excuse. And you know what? In this information age, how long does it actually take to roll out a policy requiring all of your agencies and agents to wear body cameras specifically and especially when conducting a no-knock raid? And you have in the kitty $1.4 billion to draw from. You only have 5,100 employees plus a couple of thousand other employees. $1.4 billion, you could buy a lot of Axon body cams with that. And it would not take very long to implement that kind of program at all. It is not complex. It's very simple. This guy is filled with nothing but excuses.
Police officers who accompanied you on this raid, did they wear body cams?
Again, not commenting on this specific case, but in general, the Department of Justice written policy allows local law enforcement on these types of operations, short-term operations, to follow their own guidelines and policies.
Yeah, but listen, here's why they don't. Eyes Wide Open. Eyes Wide Open says Congress needs to abolish the ATF and stop playing games with this guy. But this is part of the dog and pony show that makes the people think that Congress is legitimate. If they keep on doing this kind of stuff, which absolutely, when you see these House Judiciary Committees or these other committees where they're grilling Mark Zuckerberg or they're grilling Elon Musk or they're grilling the ATF or the FBI or the CIA directors, nothing ever comes of it. It's a dog and pony show. Voltaire said, give them bread and circuses and they will never revolt. This is part of that scene and part of the scenery, because all the world's a stage and we're all just actors playing our parts and they're actors playing their parts and everybody's applauding. And as long as we got plenty of Domino's pizza and Coca-Cola and Netflix, we're all happy with ourselves. We're going somewhere. We're making changes. We're American. As long as all those little breadcrumbs are dropping to the floor and you've got plenty of things to entertain you, they don't care. This is all part of the entertainment. Congress will not get rid of and abolish the ATF, the FBI, the CIA, the Department of Homeland Security. Do you realize the Department of Homeland Security didn't exist pre-October 2001? But now they do. And the budget for the Department of Homeland Security is like $65 or $70 billion every single year. Do you know NASA continues to make $69 to $71 million every single day? What are we getting for that? Isn't there something else? Aren't there bridges that need to be tended to? Aren't there roadways that have major potholes in them? Isn't there a problem with, sustainable energy? Don't we have a global warming issue like all the pundits seem to think? Isn't there something else we can do with piles and piles of money? Instead, we create these special interest groups, these alphabet soup agencies who become domestic terrorists. And we say that's law enforcement. Well, that's, just a few bad apples here. Really, if there's just a few bad apples, how come every single ATF agent was a bad apple on the scene? Nobody's stepping forward to question, why are we at Malinowski's house? I did my research. Did you do yours? Guy makes $256,000 a year. He has no criminal history. He's an upstanding member of his community. He's a freaking director of a huge airport here in Little Rock. What are we going to this guy's house for? He's not some kind of, arms dealer like the government is. He's not running some fast and furious operation like our ATF organization has done and is doing. He's not running drugs, on a massive level like the CIA looks like they're doing with their stranglehold on the opium trade in Afghanistan for over 20 years, where 90% of all opium comes from. Nobody's stepping forward to take personal responsibility for what looks like the murder of an American in his home on American soil in violation of the Second Amendment and the Fourth Amendment. So that's why Congress will never abolish the ATF, because they need these bread and circuses to keep the funds flowing. If you have any question about who controls you, find out who you're not allowed to criticize without some major pushback. It's not going to happen. Don't look for it. It's a big club. And like George Carlin said, you ain't in it and you never will be. But that doesn't mean we can't use our platforms while we're able to create a situation where we're less divided and more cohesive. And all we have to do is agree on some basic things. Is this a violation of the golden rule? Absolutely. We can all agree on that. It's plain as the nose on your face. Is it ever right to initiate unjust force and violence on a peaceful person who hasn't done anything wrong? And if Brian Malinowski is not that peaceful person who hasn't done anything wrong with no criminal record, I don't know who is. Yes, we can all agree that it's unnatural and it's evil to initiate unjust force and violence on peaceful people who haven't done anything wrong. Well, the ATF did that. Abolish them. They did the same thing to Randy Weaver. They did the same thing to the people at Waco with the FBI. How long are we going to keep these alphabet soup agencies terrorizing us? That's the question we got to ask ourselves. So no, Congress needs the ATF. They won't abolish the ATF. They need this bread and this has to be in the center ring under the big top every so often, so that people get the idea that, oh, maybe Congress is doing something when they're doing absolutely nothing but giving you another show. Grab the popcorn and keep the popcorn popper out on the counter, because next week they'll have another subcommittee hearing or House Judiciary Committee hearing that will amount to nothing.
If they wish, in body-worn cameras. And what I wanted to say
their policy was to wear them. They weren't wearing them that day. We want to know why.
Yeah, we
Did you
do.
tell them not to wear them?
Mr. Chairman, again, it is simply unfair at this point. While
I know my guys committed a horrendous act, and I know I'm on the stand right here because we executed an American in this house on American soil in violation of the Second and Fourth Amendment. And I'm trying to answer your questions.
It's a pending investigation.
That's a simple question. We just want to know why they weren't following the rules. Their rules say wear body cameras. Your rules say wear body cameras. You weren't wearing body cameras. I go back to my original question. What were you trying to hide? We saw the video where you walked up and you put the tape on the doorbell. We know there were no lights to the foyer area. We have Mrs. Malinowski here who can testify to that. And we know you weren't wearing body cameras. What were you hiding?
Again,
God, we got all this evidence, guys. Think about it. We've got the evidence of an execution of a murder. We've got the evidence. They're not denying they did it. They know they did it. Everybody knows that they know they did it. Everybody knows they did it. What's so hard about this? When's the justice going to come? Let me remind you guys of something. Here's how bad it is. And here's how much they want to rub their evil in our faces. Remember the CIA director, ex-CIA director, Mike Pompeo? Do you remember what he said about his role as the CIA director? We are talking about on the top. All crap rolls downhill. A stream can rise no higher than its source. Mike Pompeo was the source, the director of the CIA. And listen to what he says. with laughter, with applause.
When I was a cadet, what's the cadet motto at West Point? You will not lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate those who do. I was the CIA director. We lied, we cheated, we stole. It was like we had entire training courses. It reminds you of the glory of the American experiment.
Is that what it reminds you of? Does lying, cheating, and stealing remind you of the glory of the American experiment? Because I got to tell you, it doesn't remind me of that. I'm going to watch this. I don't know if you've ever been exposed to this from Mike Pompeo, but I want you to listen to it again, because this doesn't just apply to Mike Pompeo. This doesn't just apply to the CIA or the FBI or the TSA. This is what government is involved in. They are against secret, covert, and even overt operations against the American people, have been since their inception, and they don't care that you know it. And they will mock you in broad daylight on camera.
When I was a cadet, what's the cadet motto at West Point? You will not lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate those who do. I was the CIA director. We lied, we cheated, we stole.
And you shouldn't tolerate them, because that's what the cadets at West Point are taught. Don't lie, cheat, or steal, and don't tolerate those who do. He is calling himself, hey, I am admittedly intolerable. Not only am I intolerable, but I am the top of the heap in the CIA. You can't get higher than the CIA director within the CIA. And I lied, cheated, stole, and I taught everybody else to do the same thing. I'm in the midst of liars, cheaters, and thieves. And I'm intolerable, and so is everybody in the CIA. Don't expect us to tell the truth. Don't expect us not to steal from you.
It was like we had entire training courses. It reminds you of the glory of the American experiment.
Oh God, I don't know why people are clapping about that. I don't know why. Mike Pompeo went on to serve in the Trump administration cabinet, and if you think Trump is a good guy, if you think Trump is going to get us out of this mess, if you think Biden is going to get us out of this mess, if you thought that Obama would, or Bush, or Reagan, or Carter, or Ford, or anybody, you are absolutely deluding yourself. That Trump, it's not just Trump, it's Biden, it's all of them, that they would hire these corrupt people. Trump hired as the Treasury Secretary a guy named Steve Mnuchin, who was a Goldman Sachs lifer. He's basically, he's an in guy in the banking community. Who did he put as Commerce Secretary? Wilbur Ross. Who's Wilbur Ross? He used to be an employee for Rothschilds Inc. Why is that important? Because back in the 1990s, Donald Trump was bailed out to the tune of about $640 million. Some say as much as $2 billion, because Taj Mahal in Atlantic City got upside down. And that's the thing that Donald Trump owned. Donald Trump was bailed out by Rothschilds Inc. And he hires these people right here, these corrupt individuals, these liars, these cheaters, these thieves. But Obama, Biden, Bush, they all did the same thing. So what are they saying? We don't care about principle. We don't care about, that's another thing. 419 source says Trump will give immunity to law enforcement above and beyond the qualified immunity they already have. He wants to put a federal blanket of immunity to keep them free from any and all prosecution on the state, local, and federal level. Is that being your friend? Is that being kind to Americans? We're just going to finish this out right here.
Mr. Chairman, we're not hiding anything. And with respect to the body-worn camera policy, the people there
Why on the
hadn't been rolled out.
12th? Why on the 12th did you not go and search the home? You were all circled up, ready to go, but a week before, on the 12th of March, you don't go. You go on the 19th. Why'd you decide not to go on the 12th?
Mr. Chairman, these operations, and by the way, we do about 11,000 operations each year.
Boom, there you go. So the ATF conducts about 11,000 no-knock raids every single year. That's just the ATF. Take a look at this. Oops. I don't know what just happened. Oh, wow. Well, I didn't mean to do that. Just a second. Let's see. I just messed up one of my screens. All right, let's take a look at this. Check this out. There was the Washington compost pile. I take this stuff with a grain of salt, but if this is true, it's pretty startling. Took a random sample of 105 petitions for no-knock warrants from 2016 to 2018 and found that 103 of the 105 petitions were granted. So it's like these judges are like, yeah, rubber stamping it. Boom, boom. Yeah, just go ahead. Yeah, go no-knock rate them. Yeah, I don't care. Whatever. Get out of here. I'm watching my movie with my family. Or I'm snorting lines of Coke, or we're over at James Alefantis' place. Probably shouldn't have said that. In 97 of these cases, the police provided no specific information why the suspect in the warrant necessitated a no-knock approach. That's 97 out of 105 did not give reasons, and yet the judges still issued the warrants. They don't care about you. Could it be any clearer? They should just have like an emoji with a finger sticking up saying F all Americans when you see this kind of stuff. In 97 of those cases, the police provided no specific information on the subject in the warrant, or the suspect in the warrant, that they necessitated a no-knock approach. Anywhere between 60 and 70,000 no-knock warrants were served annually as of 2010. Guess how many they were doing in 1980 and 81? Because this figure right here is way wrong. In 1980 and 81, they were doing about 1,500 no-knock raids per year. Now they're doing 60 to 70,000. Let's take the low figure of 60,000. That's a 3,800% increase over what they were doing in the early 1980s. Don't tell me that you think that these guys are out for your best interests, because the stats and their own words say the opposite.
They're very dangerous operations. ATF doesn't do anything.
Witch on Fire just gifted 20 Here's the Deal memberships. That's crazy. Thank you, Witch on Fire. By the way, I will read all of the super chats and all of the giftings at the end of this video, and we are getting pretty close to the end of the video. So I want to keep this under an hour and a half. We're at an hour and 17 minutes right now.
That is not dangerous. Well, it's not quite true, but many of them are very, very dangerous. And those operations are handled by people with decades of law enforcement experience. They plan them. They look at things.
Director, you got to admit, this is a little unique. You got a citizen, the highest paid official in the municipal government, Little Rock, Arkansas, making $260,000 a year, running the airport. No criminal background history, no nothing, and he's dead at a pre-dawn raid when it sure looks like you could have served this search warrant when he wasn't there, but you decided not to. You decided to wait till he was home when you did it on March 19th. And as a result...
Oh, yeah, let's do the math on that. Let's just check the math on that. Let's go to the calculator. Let's go 60. Let's take the low number. 60,000 divided by 365 equals 165 no-knock warrants every single day in what people think is the land of the free, home of the brave. 100, by their own figures. This is what they're telling us. They conduct 164 no-knock raids every single day. That's like 3 per state. That's crazy.
Mr. Malinowski is no longer with us.
Well, first of all, let me just say this, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, any time that there's a loss of life, That is a profound incident. And of course, on behalf of just myself, ATF, and all law enforcement, we are very sorry when those things happen.
That is freaking BS. That is a lie. You know, remember what former CI director Mike Pompeo said? We lie, we cheat, and we steal. We have whole training manuals on this. What's he doing right now? He's implementing the contents of those training manuals right now as we watch.
Also, an agent was shot that day, and I'm sure you are sorry that that occurred also.
Of course, all the more reason to follow the no-knock warrant, not to have a no-knock warrant take place and follow the rules.
Mr. Chairman, as somebody who has worked with law enforcement for decades, there's a great temptation when a horrible incident happens to prejudge. Sometimes people even try to use it to advance agendas. The cops who are in the field and the family
I just want the answers. My time has expired.
Yeah,
5-minute rule. The chair recognizes
time
gentleman
has
from
expired.
Alabama.
I just think this is hilarious. This is a commentary channel, guys. When I have live streams like this, it's a commentary live stream. He means well, but how does Brian listen to himself say the same things day after day? That's what everybody does. That's what you do. I mean, if it's true that if the more you tell a lie, the more people will take that lie to be the truth, then what if we told the truth every single day? What if we told it in various ways? And what if we kept saying it? Oh, he interrupted again, blah, blah, blah. You don't need to be here. Like, if you want to listen to just nothing but commentary, there's Russell Brand, there's Joe Rogan. You know, people make their living doing this stuff. This is a commentary channel. I've got no apologies for it. This is, you don't, thanks for being here. Thanks for giving the view and the support that way. But gee, Willikers, it's called getting the message out. Exactly. We should all be talking every single day. Every single day. If you guys like this, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification icon. Let me just go over some of the people who've supported this live stream right here. Janice Kowalski, Right On, has been a member for 12 months. Joseph Doe gifted 5 Here's the Deal memberships. Patrick, welcome aboard as a new member. I saw somebody saying, how do I get a membership when somebody gifts it? I don't really know how you do that, but you can become a channel member. That'll help the channel a lot. It's only $2.99 a month. My promise to all the members. And I'll try to create a situation where we have like members only live streams and members only content down the road. But what my promise to you is right now is I will get out the videos that I've been getting out in accordance with the truth and natural law. That's my commitment to you. And I will do it consistently. And as long as I have breath in my lungs, I will try to do it every single day. I'm at this computer all day long, doing research, trying to figure out how to make this place a better place on multiple platforms. And I think if we all did that, and we not just talk about it, but actually do this in our daily lives, I think we could have a better world. I think we could have a better place to live in. So thank you, Patrick, for being a new member. If you want to become a member, I'd really appreciate it. And William says YouTube will probably take about $6 of this super chat. Was just looking for a join button. Thanks for this great report, Brian. Thank you, William. I appreciate that. Let me go back to the live right here. Rebel, thanks for being here. Redneck, what's the matter, you? Thanks, Melania. Anthony, Broken, Tennessee Accountabilities here. Guys, I really appreciate it. Thanks for being here. If you can do me a favor, because this channel has become highly suppressed, especially in the last 2 or 3 months, hit the like button, hit the share button, engage in the comments underneath this video. Maybe binge watch some of my other videos. I've got a lot of videos on here that for one reason or another went viral. See if you think it's worthy of going viral. I appreciate you guys being here. I am going to do another live stream. Oh man, it's 5:13. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it today, but if not tonight, I will definitely do another live stream tomorrow, because I wanted to go over a live stream where a guy was picking on a sovereign citizen, which again, that's a misnomer. That's an oxymoron. But in picking on the sovereign citizen, he actually let his own audience know that he doesn't know the fundamental definition of very shall we say, kindergarten type words, or at least fifth grade type of words, which is pretty interesting to me when people are out there giving their opinions about things that they really, really don't understand, especially when they're launching ad hominem attacks against other people. Guys, I appreciate it. Remember, the price of freedom is now and will always be eternal vigilance, and indifference to this notion is the means by which the people have and will secure their own oppression. Let's stop securing our own oppression, and let's start today. I will see you guys in the next live stream. Don't forget to like, and don't forget to share. Take care.